Good morning and welcome to National Signing Day for the class of 2022. I'm Alex Heinert, coming to you live from our Midco Sports studios here in Grand Forks, North Dakota, which today is also serving as signing day headquarters for UND football, just like it's done since 2017. Over the next hour, we're bringing you full coverage of North Dakota's first set of signees in this class of 2022, including highlights, analysis, and conversations with coaches, experts, and the new recruits themselves. Should be a fun show. Speaking of signing day headquarters, let's look in live now at our Midco Sports conference room where UND head coach Bubba Schweigert and his staff have been posted up since the early morning hours. We're going to be hearing a lot from that crew and the 20-plus student athletes they have recruited to join their program coming up over the next 60 minutes. Before we tell you about the 2022 class, though, let's look back at what transpired this past season for UND football. A quick rewind of the 2021 fall season. Remember, North Dakota were conference champions in the Missouri Valley in the spring. They entered the fall with high expectations that things started off well out in Pocatello, Idaho. A 35-14 victory over the Idaho State Bengals of the Big Sky to get things rolling. Week 2 would see another trip out to the mountains to take on a really good Utah State team who would go on to win the Mountain West this season. North Dakota led 21-7 in that contest and were up in the third quarter. 28 unanswered, though, by the Aggies. Utah State would pull away in the end on national TV on a rainy Friday night, if you remember, in a lightning-delayed contest out in the mountains of Utah. The following week, North Dakota back home, the home opener, a dominant performance over the Drake Bulldogs, a 38-0 victory. North Dakota rolls up 527 yards of total offense. A couple of turnovers in this game, but the defense shown. Big victory for UND to improve to 2-1 in non-conference play entering the bye week. The following week, after a bye, big contest against North Dakota State. First home game against the Bison since 2003. UND would hold the Bison to under 300 yards of total offense, but they would make one more play in the end and come up with a 6-point victory. NDSU, again, in the semifinals of the FCS playoffs right now. The following week, down in Vermilion, is a tough stretch of games for North Dakota, playing ranked opponents week in, week out. South Dakota would get the better of UND in this one. 2013, a low-scoring game. Tough on third down on the day, just 2 of 11 on third for North Dakota. A big difference in the end in the 7-point defeat to the Coyotes. The next week, another tough road opponent, number 4, Southern Illinois. This is a great back-and-forth game. UND would fight their way back from 21-7 down in this contest and pull even at 28 apiece. The Salukis, though, would hit a field goal with 5 minutes left to be the difference in this one, a 31-28 defeat. North Dakota would get back on the winning track the next week, though, against Western Illinois, an impressive 34-10 victory in which they would shut out a high-flying Leathernecks offense in the second half. Fighting Hawks would roll up 607 yards of total offense, 2 players over 100 yards rushing on the grounds. UND would then travel to Missouri State, another back-and-forth game that North Dakota led late. They were up 28-17, but this Jason Shelley touchdown with 15 seconds left would be the difference as the Bears would get the victory. UND entered playoff mode from that point out, and they would play well. A couple of home games down the stretch. Fighting Hawks would take on Youngstown State. They would rally from 21-10 down to beat the Penguins on the second-to-last home game of the season. A really impressive showing and a gritty performance against Youngstown in that contest. And they would follow it up in a defensive battle with Illinois State. This game was tied at 7 late when Gavin Zebarth would catch this touchdown pass from Quincy Vaughn. UND the 14-7 victory, holding the Redbirds to just 164 yards of total offense. 5-5 on the season, everything on the line in Brookings the following week. Another tight one that North Dakota just did not find a way to pull out in the end. SDSU able to pull off the 24-21 victory, a late field goal with 5 minutes left, the difference in this contest. 5-6, the final record. 5 conference losses, all by 1 score. Again, such a tough, hard luck type of a fall after a lot of those close games went North Dakota's way in the spring. But again, nothing to shake their hat on after, again, a really strong effort and great fight from start to finish for this club. Even though the fall might not have seen UND return to the FCS postseason for a 3rd straight year, it certainly doesn't tarnish the legacy of a graduating senior class who won 2 conference championships and reached the playoffs on 3 occasions. Some of those seniors who are moving on from the program include 3 team captains, led by All-American left tackle and 4-year starter Matt Miletsko, who's been chosen to feature in this year's Senior Bowl after another outstanding season up front, a 4-year starter for the young man from Rapori, Minnesota. Like Miletsko, cornerback Evan Holm, also named to the All-Valley squad this year after finishing 2nd on the team in solo tackles. He ends a distinguished 6-year UND career, having played 47 games and starting in 35 of them. Outside linebacker Jackson Turner graduates as the program's all-time D1 leader in sacks and earned an all-conference honorable mention on this season. Always impressive off the edge for number 15. Similar story to fellow captain Jordan Kennedy, who had a stellar senior year after recovering from an Achilles injury he suffered in the spring. A 3-year starter at safety moving on as well. Kennedy's safety partner, Hayden Galvin, also concluded his UND career this fall after joining the program from the JUCO ranks in 2018. Galvin, a 3-year starter, posted 5 career picks over his UND career. And there's Noah Larson, who started an incredible 41 consecutive games at inside linebacker and never finished worse than 3rd on the team in total tackles. It'll be certainly strange not seeing Larson, Turner, and fellow senior linebackers Ty Shannon and Ray Haas not on the field for this team in 2022. And then finally on offense, Brock Boltman and his versatile skill set will be moved on after scoring 9 touchdowns over his career. And then there's Jake Richter. He'll leave UND with the Masters after making an impact at receiver in his 2 seasons in Grand Forks. With that impressive group of seniors moving on, there were areas on both sides of the football that Bubba Schweigert and his staff needed to address with this recruiting class, specifically up front, at linebacker, and in the secondary. And this is exactly what this group has done as they bring in today in this early signing period 24 new players, 20 freshmen, and 4 transfers at the moment. Again, that class will continue to grow as we move on to February and the second signing period. We mentioned some of the guys this North Dakota group has brought in. Let's take a look now at the class of 2022 as we'll go position by position on our signing day special. You see some of the names that have signed this morning. We mentioned Colton Hackle, again, a dual threat quarterback from Perham. A couple of good receivers, one from Missouri and Caden Dennis, a track kid with a ton of speed. Sam Strandell, a multi-sport athlete from here in Grand Forks, 3-time All-ADC on the edge. Anthony Mo Tucker, who started his high school career as an offensive lineman, moved to running back and was a power force for Caston Manterville, a team that made the state title game in Minnesota this past season. A couple of big athletic tight ends, a part of this offensive class as well, and Hayden State from Princeton, Minnesota, and Trace Staden from Millard West down in Omaha. Big bodies, big frames, good feet as well for those guys. Offensive line, a big point of emphasis every year for this North Dakota team. 3 of them in terms of freshmen coming in, including Brett Kelsenberg, Cade Borude, and Liam Beecher, a couple of Iowa kids, plus 1 from the Twin Cities. On the defensive side of the football, North Dakota always stressing, getting better in the trenches. Jack Tyken, who was the Defensive Player of the Year in his class in Moorhead, signing on. Lucas Schweigert, the Gatorade Player of the Year in North Dakota. Kendis Ledbetter, a guy from Sioux Falls, South Dakota from Washington High School, and then Caleb Olson, a all-conference performer on both offensive and defensive lines. In the linebacker spot, a lot of late commits on the linebackers that we saw come in the last couple of days. Some really talented ones here. Payne Parks, who's a Red River High School kid from Grand Forks. Brady Lehman from Wisconsin. Logan Dole from Wisconsin as well. And then Jack Barrett's also from Wisconsin. Big frames, good athletes joining. A lot of those guys will be projected as outside linebackers, but you never know where they'll end up eventually when they come onto campus. Another linebacker as well who signed late last night, Hayden Steck from Elkhorn, Nebraska, former state champ in the state of Nebraska. And then a couple of good defensive backs in Jet Stutton from the Kansas City area and Jamal Dixon, Jack Tyken's teammates from the Moorhead, Minnesota area. 4 transfers right now have signed on, a couple of offensive linemen, one from Butler Community College, and Braden Bryant, who had a ton of offers from around the Missouri Valley. Seth Anderson, a rare North Dakota State to North Dakota commit, another Moorhead guy joining that pipeline. And then a D-back in Devin Hembry, who's out of Oklahoma, played at Neo JUCO last season, a guy who can play either corner or safety. And then Aaron Cooper, a big get for this team from Cal Poly, a 3-year starter for the Mustangs in the Big Sky. Exciting group of young men who have signed on to play for the head coach, Bubba Schweigert, who enters now year 9 as the head coach of this program. Bubba, as always, congratulations on a great signing class. You got to feel good to see all those guys sign their names on the dotted line here this morning.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. You know, it's a lot of hard work. The staff did a great job of identifying guys early. You know, we still were dealing with the pandemic a bit as far as junior days, but our administration made it possible that we could host camps over the summer and really helped us evaluate a number of these young men and got a good combination here of offense, defense, some transfers that really will help our football team. We're always looking to improve our team through the recruiting process, and I think we've done that today.
You mentioned the pandemic causing, some issues as it has for everybody around the country. You also had the fact you played a full spring season as well. Just a really unique year for you and this group to navigate. How did that change the recruiting process?
Well, I think it was different. You know, we still were on the phones and getting to know guys, but when you have a season in the spring, you aren't spending as much time on recruiting as you normally would do. But I go back to our staff, found the time to identify guys, found the time to build relationships. And, you know, we feel that's such an important part of the process, is building relationships and start coaching these guys before they're ever here. You know, they're finishing up their high school careers. We don't want to interfere with that, but we also want a good, strong relationship. And when they get here, feel like this is really home for them.
As you bring in this group of freshmen and transfers as well, as you said, it's all about relationships and getting to know this group and their families. What stands out to you about the group of guys that you bring in now this season?
Well, I think just a number of guys that love football. You know, we'll start right here in town. You know, we get to know Sam Strandell and Payne Parks for a number of years, coming to camp, seeing them compete in our passing tournaments and building that relationship. Lucas Schweigert out in Bismarck, we've known about him for a long, long time, and we're really looking forward to him joining us. And locally, you know, Jamal Dixon and Jack Tyken right out of Moorhead High School, which has been really good to us, and the transfer Seth Anderson, who we recruited out of high school and got to know him. And we're really excited about those guys from within the immediate area joining our program. Colton Hackle, you know, Coach Freund really developed a good relationship with him. We think he's got a bright future here at the University of North Dakota. Yeah,
it always feels like you start close and you kind of work your way out, and that was the case again this year. You also start with character. It always seems like you're picking guys that fit the culture of this program, and that's what is the MO, really, of all this group that's coming in.
Yeah, I think it's really important. You know, we want guys that are going to bring a lot to our UND campus, bring a lot to our community. We take a lot of pride in our guys being great community members, and that's an important piece of the recruiting process. We just really take a lot of pride in that, and we feel like, you know, with great characters, we can build a better winning tradition, and we've got a proud winning tradition here. Obviously, in the fall, the results weren't what we wanted, but we feel like, you know, there's so many pieces in place, and we've got to just keep increasing our talent, but finding the right characters and the right type of people to join our program.
You bring in a number of talented freshmen from around the region. You also dipped into the transfer portal a little bit, and that's become more and more common. Those are guys now with two offensive linemen, a couple of guys on the defensive side of the football as well, that you expect to compete right away and try and make an impact on this program earlier than later.
Yeah, no question. You know, Seth Anderson